Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. CA results will be out soon, and a question that every CA candidate has in mind is what next? This becomes an even greater dilemma when considering niche fields, as the number of people opting for them is quite low and the amount of information available is limited. So, as part of my series where I invite people from various fields to share their experience, I would like to welcome CA Karthik Vishwanath to share his experience about growth advisory. To give some background about him, he started his articleship journey with audit at EY, moved to Grant Thornton, where he worked in the growth advisory department, and he's currently working at one of the world's leading MNC banks. Hi, Karthik. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Harsh. Thank you for having me here. Looking forward to adding value to your audience today.
Firstly, can you just briefly talk about your experience at EY and why you chose to switch to GT in a completely different profile?
So I was at EY for a year and I was in statutory audit. And 6 to 7 months in, I realized audit is not really my calling. I found it too monotonous. So the first 2 quarters, I did get to learn new things. And it's the first time as a 19-year-old seeing the balance sheet of a company with a balance sheet size of say 30 to 35,000 crores. It's definitely a big thing, and you get to learn a lot. You get to see how companies play around with their numbers, how they report, etc., etc. But I feel after a while it got too monotonous, and again we were divided within EY. We were divided based on the industry. So 90% of my clients were within the same industry. I was doing pharma. So after a point, I didn't think there was too much learning when it came to the industry. I thought it kept getting repetitive and monotonous. And I even did ask whether we will get to work with clients in different industries. And sadly, the answer was no. So, to put in one line, it was too monotonous. I wanted to keep learning and reading about different things, which is why I decided to make the jump. And I think, thankfully, the institute gives us the opportunity. It gives us the time frame of 1 year to decide whether we like what we're doing, and if not, we can change without having any very strong reason to put on paper. Which is why I moved the jump, and I wanted to do something non-audit. And so my hunt was tougher, but I was very clear I wanted to do something non-audit. This is why I moved to growth advisory.
Okay, so that is one drawback of working at a big four audit firm, because you are stuck in one industry and then you will end up doing the same thing over and over again.
That's right.
So, for the audience, if you all are interested in audit and you want to try out different industries, then I think that big four might not be the right choice, because you will be stuck doing the same thing for 3 years. So, moving to the next question, considering the fact that this field would be new to a lot of people watching this video, can you explain what exactly does a consultant in the growth advisory field do, and what is the value proposition?
So growth advisory, to put it in terms that a lot more people might be able to relate to, it's very similar to strategy consulting. So you're helping clients build a strategy. Suppose they want to launch a new product. How do they go about it? Suppose they want to know which out of their 150 stores across India is not performing well, which stores to shut. They come to you. You help them with the main strategy. You don't help them with the execution. You tell them this is what is happening. For example, this is what is happening in the industry. This is what you are doing, and this is what you're missing out on. So this is what you can do. So within growth advisory, there are different kinds of projects. There's CDD, which is your commercial due diligence. Then there's just market studies. There's only competition benchmarking, business plan. Sometimes you also help with numbers. So you help in financial modeling, financial prediction to kind of show them, where you can go with the idea that you have. So a lot of different kind of projects. And the best thing about our practice at GT was when I started, it was a relatively new practice at GT. So we were industry agnostic. So out of the multiple projects that I've worked on, probably only 2 or 3 were within the same industry. So that was one big benefit for me. So with each project, you have to do your background research, right? You read about the industry, you read about the market, you read about the big players in the industry, see what they're doing, see what you're missing out on, see what you can add on. So learning wise, you as an individual also you get to learn a lot more because you have to read up. Um, and again, this growth advisory as a field requires you to be very analytical. You have to use your brain. You have to um, kind of connect the dots, right? If one source is saying the market, global market size of the industry is say 100 billion, just as an example standpoint,
Yeah.
and India, another article says is only 35% of the market, but the third article says that this Indian market size is 40 billion and not 35 billion. So there you have to kind of connect the dots, see what is making more sense, kind of validate the numbers from not one source, from multiple sources. And also, client interaction is very, very important here. You tend to interact with the most senior stakeholders from the client side. So the conversations are different. The way you speak, that way of speaking and understanding numbers and concepts itself is very different. So your growth advisory in a nutshell is that.
So I have a few questions. So the first one you mentioned about working on financial modeling, benchmarking. So can you just elaborate a little what exactly you have to do for those particular kind of assignments?
Um, so I'll talk about this one project which involved a lot of number crunching. So this was a player in the food and beverage industry, and he wanted to open up these small cafes, not only in India, in multiple hubs in India, like the metros, and as well as the Middle East and Singapore and the kinds of that. So basically, he wanted to cover places with a lot of uh, office-going people, like corporates. So like a corporate park and things of those kind. So for that, we had to start with kind of analyzing the area you want for your cafe. It's not going to be like this big family restaurant where it's lavish and there's big tables and not a it's a cafe. You come, you grab a coffee, grab a breakfast, come to for lunch, take a salad and go if you want to sit for some time. So we had to start with kind of seeing the area of the plot that you need. Then it went down to, okay, if the area of one chair is, say, it covers X meter square or X square feet, how many seats can you accommodate? And then even because it's an F&B, anybody who's read or studied about the F&B industry knows that the footfall is not same throughout the day. Some kind of restaurants and cafes will be more active in the night. They cater to that segment. Some will also have lunch. A small percentage will also be like only known for breakfast. You go in the morning, grab say a yogurt bowl, go to work. So you kind of then you go study the market, see typically what is the trend, what is the percentage distribution between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Accordingly, your footfall is also going to. So you have the total capacity, you have the kind of distribution of the footfall during the day. So you kind of have a number that you can expect that will come for you to breakfast. Again, this is different between weekdays and weekends because when you're going to office, when you're facing people going to office, they're not going mostly not going to be coming over the weekends. So a lot of minute understanding you need of the industry. And then again, a lot of market research. You read what's happening in this industry. If it's a new cafe, your capex can include stuff that you probably not even think in a food and beverage, say like a speaker system and a DJ. Again, you won't have a DJ necessarily in a cafe in an office going space, but just from an example standpoint. So a lot of reading you have to do first, and then translate that into numbers. Then you see, okay, you can also see the average meal price. So your breakfast won't the average ticket size for breakfast is not going to be the same for lunch and for dinner. So you can factor in that too. Then you kind of get the flow of the revenue. You see, suppose you want a 10% increase in revenue year on year, you factor that. Your costs will increase. Now, cost also manpower. Then your for food, raw material, as in the ingredients that you're going to cook with, big cost. So you factor a lot of all of these, and slowly the numbers flow, and you get an idea. Once you get an understanding, then always the client is also there to help you. If you don't understand, it's better to not make wrong assumptions. Either get an understanding from your research. If not, always you can go to the client because the client also needs help. He's going to help you how much ever he can, but there's only a certain extent he can do, and the rest you have to do. So yeah, that would be it.
Okay. And my next question is, so is the research part, is it done on a continuous basis, whether or not you are working on any specific assignment, or your research is limited to what you got an assignment for?
So again, I think this depends on the size of the organization you're with. Since we were a small and relatively new practice, most of our research were based on the project. Um, Also, sorry, one more thing I forgot to add in growth advisory is also you tend to make a lot of proposals because you have to reach out to clients saying, "This is my CV. I've done XYZ in across industries. I've done XYZ in your particular industry. This is how I can help you." So for that also, the background research is on. Um, because you have to make the client feel like you know what you're talking about. Even though it's their industry, you
Mm.
kind of portray the image that I know it's your industry, but I've done XYZ and helped other companies in the past, so I can do that for you as well. So that research is on. Apart from that, sometimes you kind of just, for an internal firm circulation, you kind of just do, say, an automobile industry update, a quarter update, or things like that. So for us, majorly, it was only pertaining to the project, but there are bits and pieces you do outside as well.
And considering you were an article at GT, what is the extent to which you get to interact with management, especially the senior executives of the company?
So thankfully, I've had a very good experience there. I've had wonderful bosses at my time in GT, and they were very open when it came to having me involved in the projects. So typically, an article would not be allowed on client interactions. You just do the research work and you're done with it. But I had an extremely good boss who did give me that exposure. So I've been on client calls. I've interacted with the CXOs of the client. I've even interacted one on one, and just to be a part of a call with the seniors, like from your end, it's the partners and the ADs, the executive directors, from there, and the CXOs who are actually very busy people. So in the limited time that they have, their discussion is pure work related, and the way they talk, it's very mesmerizing. I said, remember the first client call I was a part of. So sadly, it was work from home at that time because of the second wave. So it was over Teams, but the way they talk, it's just gonna like make you feel a part of an important project. Like you're actually going to be executing, help the client execute that. So I did get good exposure, and I was like treated as an employee. So the first day that I joined, the partner in the introduction to the team, the call that we had, one of the first things he said was, even though you're an article or a trainee, we're going to treat you like a full-time employee, and we expect you to also perform like one.
Mm.
And that itself, I think, set the tone for the next 2 years. I was treated as an employee, and it was a very good experience. So if any of you guys, the viewers, have a chance to explore such fields, grab it. This is a time where you don't have nothing depends on you. This is the time where you can explore new fields with zero risk. So go for it.
So a lot depends on how your team is and how much committed you are to uh, this particular profile.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah. So, can you talk about one interesting assignment that stood out in your 2-year tenure at GT?
Okay, I'll tell you about two. One,
Mm.
because I already touched upon the F&B cafe chain. So this was actually a cafe chain that started in Australia, but they wanted to move to India, Dubai, Singapore, and so on. And we had to do everything from the start, right? And this project was across a lot of months because um, this was not something it's not just some market research data piece you work for a week or two and it's done, you push it out. Then your Marcom team, which is a marketing and communication team, edits it and it's done. It's not that. It's a much bigger thing. So this cafe chain we worked on, and the best thing is, so after I left, after my articleship period was over, I did come across a Google link which said that, oh, I don't want to take the name, but XYZ is now launched in Dubai, and the Dubai chain was in DIFC and DAFSA. So DIFC is their SEZ in Dubai, and DAFSA is their airport free zone, which were the particular two outlets that I focus on majorly. So again, I got to see. So basically, I got to see it from start to end. Start from the planning, the number crunching, the design layout, um, things like that, all the way till the end when it actually became a fully functional cafe, which probably is serving hundreds of customers right now. So that was one very interesting thing. Again, also because F&B as an industry, the food and beverage industry, is something very close to me. Uh, I won't call myself a foodie, but food is something very, very close to me. So again, that personal connect to want to do something in this industry now that I've been assigned the project. That was one. The second one was so we were working with a venture fund, and they wanted to pitch to angel investors. And the whole concept behind that fund was for IITs by IITs. Uh, for IITs by IITs to IITs. So basically, the concept is IIT alumni are going, who are now successful in whichever field they're in, are going to invest in startups that have been founded by current IIT students. So this was back in end of 2021 that I did this. And again, a lot of interesting data points come across when you research, because we had to prepare the pitch deck for the sponsor presentation. So at that time, end of 2021, there were roughly around 80 unicorns in India. And for viewers who aren't aware what a unicorn is, it's a company or a startup with a valuation of $1 billion US. So out of those 80 unicorns that India had, roughly around 50% of those unicorns, so roughly around 40 startups or companies, were led by an IIT founder, which is a very interesting fact. So again, a lot of interesting numbers came up. Got to learn a lot about how venture funds in the VC industry works. Also came across this concept of a venture builder that takes some stake in your new startup but helps you build up and grow and get funded later. I learned about the various rounds of funding, right from the seed funding to your whichever series funding that you reach up to. A lot of good learning, good interaction, and the client side. He was basically like this was his whole brain vision. He was very open to feedback, like raw feedback, because that's how badly he wanted this to work and he wanted it to work. So again, very different industry, different kind of work, different project, nothing repetitive or monotonous, and good learning.
Okay, so that sounds quite interesting considering the diversity of the assignments that you worked on. One was on in the food and beverages industry. The second is completely different, financial intermediaries, the VC fund that you worked on. So how is the work pressure in this field, and how did you manage your studies? Because that is one area where I think every article wants to put a lot of emphasis on.
So again, so work pressure, according to me, it's very subjective. So somebody working 8 hours a day is too much and they just want to get out. But for somebody who's sitting and working 10, 11 hours daily, and somebody who really likes it, for them 10, 11 hours is nothing. And once you kind of have, so for me, I had my roles and responsibilities clearly defined before the start of each project. I had that interaction with my boss that this is what I'm doing. It's expected by this timeline, and I will deliver it to you by the end of that timeline. So thankfully, there was no micromanagement. I had full responsibility and ownership of my piece of the whole project. So right from the start itself, I knew what periods I'm going to get busier at, when other client calls, like the intermediate client checkup. So the client is not directly going to come at the end, right? He's going to want to see drafts and see how things are progressing and things like that. So I had to factor in all of that. So one very big plus point for me was because most of it was work from home. I was saving 2 to 3 hours of travel each day, and 2 to 3 hours is a lot. And as a CA student, a lot of your viewers will also understand and relate that in 3 hours you can possibly finish off one lecture, or if you're watching it at a faster speed, which a lot of us did, You can pull in like 1.5 lectures or sometimes even two. This is only in that 3 hours, and outside of that anyway. So as a principal, I'd try and end maximum by 8:39. Sometimes obviously when work demands, you go beyond that, but I try to end beyond 8:30. I try to end by 8:39, and after that, post dinner, I try and watch like a lecture or read up something or try and solve a sum or two. Just do something, because once that flow breaks of not watching a lecture daily, it's very hard to get back. And again, the one very big key as a CA student that you need is consistency. You have to be consistent throughout your, maybe not entirely the 2.5 years of your articleship before your exam. Obviously, now things are changing with the new course. But right from day one, okay, take a few months, start of articleship, like I said, as a 19, 20-year-old, first time you're seeing all this. It's a great thing. You have to embrace and enjoy that. But a few months in, you have to start preparing. Once you have a clear plan, it's all about execution. And your plan, so I believe a lot of students make this mistake that you need a plan only in your 4 or 5 months of study leave. But according to me, you have to plan right from the start. So I had a rough plan in mind before I started my articleship, that I wanted to complete uh, this much by so date, this much by the next in the next 3 months, and so on. And my bosses were also very understanding. So at GT, I was the first CA trainee that they had in that team. So for them also was a new thing. They wanted me to help them, but at the same time, they also didn't want my studies to get impacted. So it was a very healthy, healthy relationship in that way. And one other reason I moved out of audit was one, I don't think I was learning too much. Two, timelines in audit are mad, and every quarter you can't afford to spend 2, 3 weeks not watching a lecture at all. Because in the first year of your articleship, okay, you can still catch up later. But when it comes to the second and third year, it's very tough to just work, because at the back of your head, you know that you have millions of lectures pending. So again, basically in one line, to answer your question of how to manage, just pre-plan and then focus on the execution of the plan that you have.
And how long were your study leaves?
I got a study leave of 5 months. So 5 entire months, thankfully, I was able to devote solely for the exam. And one more tip I'd like to give your viewers is, before your 5 months start, keep all your study material ready, whatever you think you might need. In that 5 months, you do not want to waste time trying to find out what material you need, which author to go to, which senior to take notes from. All that should happen before your study leave starts. 5 months or 4 months, or in case there are industrial trainings, 3 months, should be 100% towards the exam. Because let's face it, right? We all know it's one of the toughest exams. You can't just wing CA final.
Okay. So the openings in these kind of fields would be quite limited. So how can a candidate increase his or her chances of getting an interview call up? Because getting an interview itself is a difficult task.
Correct. So your CV is your only representation of you that goes to the company before even you get an interview call. So your CV has to be completely updated, very to the point. Some people believe in like elaborating and writing in detail about what they did or the skills that they possess, but nobody has the time to go through so many pages of CV. So your CV has to be a one-pager. And typically, in consulting, even the likes of Bain and BCG and so on, they look for spikes. Now, what is a spike? A spike is something that makes you stand out. So in your resume, they look at spikes mainly in 3 areas. One is your acads. So if you had stellar academic performances throughout, again, you don't need to be a top performer everywhere, but if you have very good grades, and in any one of the exams you're a standout, say you have a rank in some level in CA, or you've gotten very good scores in your 10th, 12th, and grad, one is acads. You need to have a spike in acads. Or second one is your positions of leadership. So whether say you've been like a head boy at school or something in college that you've done where you were chairperson of a fest or you were one of the senior people conducting a fest or something like that. Any position of leadership. It does not necessarily have to be related to your college. You would in say a road track club or something where outside of college, I'm not talking about the road track club of the college, but road track club of the area or Lions Club or whatever. Over there, you have a position of leadership. Say you're managing social media for the club. That's a spike. So one is either acads, two positions of leadership, three is extracurricular. Say you have like a Trinity certification for singing, or you've performed at XYZ competitions and you've won 5 of them, or you're a national level gold medalist at karate, for example. So typically, if you have a spike in at least one of these areas, you stand a chance. Obviously, if you have a spike in 2 or more, that is just going to increase your chance. But a CV that has a spike in absolutely nothing, it's fair, right? What is their motivation to interview you when they have other star performers? So you don't need to be the best at everything, but if you have 1 or 2 spikes, it's definitely going to add a lot of weight to your CV.
So
And
I think, yeah.
Like you said, interview is itself difficult, right? There is no interview call-up is itself difficult. There is no interview when there is no interview call-up. So your interview call-up is as important as the interview itself, because there is no point of being a good speaker and having a good interview if your CV itself can't make you get a call.
So I think a lot of work goes into your CV. You will have to build that background first before you start applying for articleship opportunities or for job opportunities.
And so, yeah, that's where this period before your results come out, spend a good week or two on creating that impressive CV. Go find your certificates from schools and colleges, all the competitions you've been a part of. And again, you can't just blindly say anything. If you say you're a medalist at some Olympiad or some competition, you need to have a certificate to back it up. You can't blindly just show off that I'm this, I'm that, if there's nothing to back you up. So until your results come out, please, please, please focus on creating your CV, because once the results are out, interviews get lined up as soon as a couple of weeks after the result. They're not going to wait for everybody to start preparing the CVs after the result and then apply. Keep it ready, start applying. As soon as the results come out, if it's positive, start applying blindly everywhere.
So this is a mistake that I've observed amongst a lot of candidates before results, especially. A lot of time is spent on celebrating that the exam is over, going out. So yeah, obviously all that is important. You can enjoy a couple of weeks after the exam, but the point of giving CA or appearing for CA and becoming a chartered accountant was to get a good job and not just to clear the exam. So you need to take that into consideration. Once you have a job in hand, you can do whatever you want. You'll have a lot of money as well to spend on various things.
I agree.
Yeah. So a lot of CA aspirants would be watching this video. So do you have any message for them?
Yeah, sure. I think my biggest message to CA students and hopefully CAs in the coming future is one, like I said, plan to divide and conquer. CA is a vast, vast, vast space. Subjects like taxation, direct taxation, and FR in itself are big, huge oceans. And those are just 2 papers out of the overall 8, or now in the new course 6. So you have to divide and conquer. You have to break it down into doable action points. Let's talk about, say, FR. It has a lot of these Ind ASs, right? In your head, you might feel like, oh shit, there's so many. But if you break it down and say that, this week I'm going to cover 4 Ind ASs, or what's the lecture for 4 Ind ASs. Next week I'm going to do 2 Ind ASs plus, say, another subject. It automatically makes it easier for you also internally. It'll give you that peace of mind that, oh, I've planned for the entire subject. So, okay, I'm doing 4 this week, but that does not mean that I'm not doing the rest. The end can be, say, 2 months later. And by doing this, you're giving yourself small goals and small checkpoints. Like if you've played video games, you reach checkpoints, right? And ultimately you reach the final end of the game or you win the game, whatever. So by dividing your entire portion into small bits, you're giving yourself those very vital checkpoints that, okay, after you finish 2 weeks, I've done, say, 8 NDSs. Now I have the rest remaining. Whereas if you blindly study, there is no end. After a point, you'll just be like, oh, I must have done 50%, so I'm at a good space. But maybe you're actually not. It's very important to plan and divide and conquer and slowly move. It's not, Rome wasn't built in one day. So that is one. And second, very important is, you need to rest or have certain activities or hobbies if you guys are into whatever, say reading books or like non-academic books, uh, playing instruments and so on. Keep time for that also. We have 24 hours in a day. You don't need to study for 12, 14 hours a day. You can do that one off. You might have a very good day. You might study 14 hours, out of which 12 are productive, but that's not sustainable. So even if you study 8 hours a day consistently for the 4 5 months, it's more than enough. Get enough sleep, keep enough time for your hobbies, because they're also very important. You don't want to be like halfway into your study leave and realize you're burnt out, because the second half of your study leave is the most crucial period of your 5 year or more CA career. That second half of your study leave can potentially decide if you're clearing or not. I mean, agreed, there's luck that comes in, a lot of uncertainties. There can be emergencies before the exam. All that we can't really account for. But yeah, plan, divide, conquer. That is my biggest, or probably I would say most important. This is what somebody told me before my study leave, and thankfully I was able to follow it. And thankfully that then I was able to clear. So that would be my advice.
So that was some great advice. And I would like to thank you for joining and giving us your time. This was a really insightful discussion. If you all have any doubts, then feel free to mention them in the comment section. I'll get them cleared by Karthik and respond to each one of them. If you all like this video, do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to HJ Invests for more such interesting interviews.
Thank you.